Good?
Yeah.
All right. Bo and Plagge.
Yeah, man.
Good to have you down here.
I will say everybody gets it wrong, so I'm gonna let you guys know it's Plagge.
Bo
Yeah.
and Plagge.
Yeah, there you go.
Plagge.
Dude, I've got it all. I've gotten Plague, Plaggle, Plagge, Plagge. Like, you get all kinds of things, but eventually you get bored and you're like, you know what, just Plagge, P-L-A-Y,
Bo
Gee.
Plagge.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like that. But
Okay. That's on me.
Devin Hayes.
Hayes.
Hey.
Hayes, the Tyler Zombro says.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So good to have you down here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Real quick, give us the Bo Plagge elevator pitch. How did you end up at Tread Athletics in 2023?
Yeah, so I was interested in training as a pitcher. I was playing club baseball back in 2021.
Before that, you were an outfielder, right?
Right, yeah, before that I was even an outfielder. But when I was looking for Tread, I didn't know anybody who knew pitching as well as what I had seen online, as well as I had seen some of the breakdowns from YouTube and from Ben and from all the information that's available out there these days. And I wanted to be a part of it. I saw it and I said, you know, I'm an exercise science guy. This is all the stuff that I'm learning at an even higher level. For guys to know that this stuff exists and then not use it would be crazy. It'd be dumb. So for me, I said I got to get involved as quick as I can. But the big thing was not having a coach at club ball. Like, I really needed someone in my corner. You were the
coach, weren't you?
Well, dude, it was me and the president and the vice president. And because I had the most experience in baseball, they would come to me frequently with, what do we do for practice? Like, how do we run BP? And we would all kind of pull our heads together and try to figure out what to do. But I was the pitching guy. Like, literally, they said, hey, you're the best pitcher here. Can you figure out how to manage the pitching staff? And I said, what qualifies me to do that? I got to talk to someone who knows more than I do.
Yeah.
And that's where Tread came into play, and I've never left. I've been here ever since.
So you talked to Cone initially about it, and
yeah,
exercise science. Were you planning on like getting into coaching anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, my goal has always been playing baseball at the highest level I can do it at. It's never been, I want to get to the big leagues, or I want to get to Division I, or I want to get to pro ball, whatever. It's, I want to get the most out of myself that I can. And when I called Tread, and I spoke to Cohen and I spoke to Jake McSteen, and both of those guys were like, man, you got a great personality that would lend itself to being in the baseball world as a coach, as a salesman, as a marketing, anything you want. Like, there'd be an opportunity for you if you're interested. And upon my initial phone call, I was like, well, guys, like, baseball may not always be there, but working in baseball can always be an option. And I would very much be interested in doing that. Yeah. And it actually evolved, obviously, the way it's been. But getting the opportunity to work as a coach and help out with whatever it was, sales or marketing or any kind of business meetings that you guys would have, was an invaluable experience to then transport that into baseball and understanding, okay, so I've seen it from the player's side, but this is what it looks like kind of behind the scenes, and I'm very much involved in that. That's really cool for me.
Yeah. I remember when you sent me the first videos of club ball, you were like, hey, you know, 8991, that was the fun part about you coming in gym, but beforehand you just being like, I think my ball is riding and cutting a little bit. Like, I'm 8991, I'm training in a gym, like, by myself. I think last year leading up to it, so you threw in pro day, but leading up to it, kind of like talk about what that was like, just like training, playing in club ball for the fall season, then having to train and kind of like prepare to throw in a pro day, because ultimately the goal is to play professional baseball.
Oh, 100%. When I was at Auburn, we had 2 softball fields that were turf, we were gracious enough to get turf, I'll tell you that much, but they were not baseball size fields. We had to push out a portable plastic Pyroglass mound that would move every time you threw on it. Like you were saying, springy board here. No. That thing was a literal trampoline. You'd feel yourself fall into the mound. But we would do that. We had some facilities nearby that we had to pay for that in Auburn area, but back home in Maryland, we really didn't have that many options. It's 30-something degrees in the middle of January. Back when I was playing at club, I didn't even think I'd be in that spot. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I was like, you know, I really would enjoy playing baseball on my own terms after COVID and whatnot. I said, I just love the game. I want to play it. And club ball and Tread kind of gave me the opportunity to go further with that than just the hey, I just want to play. This is, hey man, you could be really good if you wanted. Is that something you want? And I went, absolutely I do. Well, what do I got to do? What is asked of me to get to this point? And you guys were like, well, dude, you got to be up to 93, 95. You got to be able to command 2 or 3 pitches in the zone, and you got to be able to do it and be aware of whenever you make a mistake, how to make that improvement. Yeah. And I went, well, I have none of those. I don't have a tool bag. I was always a hitter, so I had a tool bag for hitting. But whenever I messed up on the mound, I didn't know how to change it or what to do to make that adjustment to get back in the zone. Mechanically, I was all over the place. I was just using all arm, 89, 91, and that was it. That was like, hey man, I'm just gonna throw it as hard as I can. And being an outfielder, that's kind of how I got that mentality of being on the mound. I'm gonna throw it by everybody. being in that position to get better for the pro day, there were a lot of small adjustments we had to make with the back leg.
The janitor drill, right?
Yep, the janitor drill was fantastic because the big thing was that I was a jumper.
Yeah.
So like when I was on the mound, I would try to see if I could get as close as I could to the plate and then sling it as hard as I could. Find out that's wrong. Find out that's not the best way to do it. And when we did get the right mechanics, it felt effortless. It felt fluid. It felt smooth and buttery. And the back leg is not a jumping platform. It's a rotational platform. And we figured that out. And coming into the pro day, I was 89 and 91 in the barn in Maryland. And I was like, dude, I don't know if this is working. The back leg stuff's like, I feel it, but I don't really know if this is what I need to be feeling.
Say this about Jake too, because I think he was on the phone with you like every week, being like, hey man, I threw him pro day like last year. Like I got signed. Like, do not worry about like you throwing in a gym by yourself in the freezing cold. Like it will get better. We know there's like probably 2 to 3 more there if you're at pro day. So like, don't stress out. But I will say like, yeah, Jake was playing psychologist for a lot of that, being like,
and honestly, I needed it. Like I was on my mind, and probably a lot of other guys' minds. They're like, oh, I got to hit a number. Like I got to be this kind of guy for me to get picked up. And some guys will beat themselves up if they're not that guy. If they're especially weeks out from an opportunity like that, and they're like, well, what do? I'm not where I need to be. Come into tread a week before pro day because I was like, well, dude, I got to do something. Something's up. Like I'm going to come in early beforehand to make sure that whatever may be up, I can fix. All that psychologist play from Jake was great, and I appreciated it, but it wasn't needed in the end because I get here and I'm 4 to 6. Honestly,
first day, I remember I watched you throw a janitor, and I was like, "Bo, you're gonna throw hard. Like, don't you worry."
And we were doing
plyos.
We were doing plyos. You come over. I'm sitting there going, "Hey man, I don't know what I got today. Like, we'll see." And he goes, "You look live. You look springy today." We get on the mound. I throw a couple 4 seams
like
that I kind of.
2 and I threw the 4 seam, right?
2 to 3 with the 4 seam, cut a little bit. You and Jake, and I think it was Matt was over there. You guys are over there behind the mound, and you're like, hey, like the way you throw the baseball, you should probably try throwing a sinker, like maybe a 2 seam grip, but see if you give it a shot. And so I threw the 4 seam kind of just across the laces, almost opposite to most righties. I kind of throw it like a lefty. But they just said, hey, slide it over, see if you can get it between the railroad tracks. Naturally, I just kind of tucked the thumb, just that's the way I throw. And I let the baby go, and I was like, dude, this thing is disappearing.
I remember it too. That was the first video that I had of it, and it was like 94.5. You broke the catcher's thumb, and that video had like 10 million views.
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea it was going to happen like that. I let go of the ball. It just kind of just bowling balled over to the right-handed batter's box. I let go of it. I looked back at you. I was like, what just happened? Like this was pretty impressive to see. Because
the same thing happened with, and it's funny, like seam shift guys, like guys that cut it, same thing happened with Declan. It was literally their first one, just takes off, like breaks the catcher's thumb. We're honestly like, I don't know what this is going to do. We're going to try it out. And it's just like happened, just take the catcher's thumb off. And just like, all right.
And that's the big thing, is that it's no stone unturned, that when we try something, it may be not work, but at least we're trying it. And that's the idea. And that has really kind of led me into what I've been in pro ball this year, with trying new things, experimenting with grips. After the sinker came out in the first bullpen before pro day, you said, hey man, you're a sinker guy now. You need a slider. And I go, I've never thrown a slider in my life. I've only ever thrown like kind of a spiked curveball, almost 12-6 to go with my 4 seam. And with changing the 4 seam to the sinker, now we have to change the 12-6 to the slider. And in the pro day, I didn't really throw a full-fledged slider. I threw my breaking ball, my curveball, from my slot as hard as I could and just broke it off. And it was like, hey, it works.
Do the White Sox now know that a week before pro day you were a 4-seam curveball guy? Like, do you tell them, like, hey guys, just so you know, I was
here and there. I'll work with some of the guys, like coaching staff there, and they're like, hey, like, do you have a feel for that sinker? And I'll go, no. And they'll look at me like I'm crazy. Like I haven't been throwing that pitch my whole life.
For a week before pro day.
Today is March 1 of spring training. I learned this pitch a month ago. Like literally, this is brand new. And for them to have enough confidence to promote me, I guess, means that I kind of figured it out in the first couple of weeks after camp broke. And for me, like every time I threw the sinker, it would just absolutely disappear. And figuring out where it was going to go was a really struggle point, a big tough point for me to figure out.
Because you were in Arizona, right, for a couple months. Like, how was that, I guess, like, bridging the gap to pro ball, having, like, to be by yourself, I guess, the first time, but also with the coaching staff? Like, how was your first, like, couple months of pro ball after spring training? Kind of everyone else leaves. You're in Arizona with a couple other tread guys. Like, how is that?
So I got there, and it was nice that I did know some tread guys, because previously I kind of imagined I'd get to spring training and not know anybody.
Declan's there, too.
So you got some people that you know, some friendly faces. you meet new guys all over. There's 100-something people at spring training, and you guys from all over the world, literally all over the world. Like, I'm not saying, oh, they're from California and I'm from Maryland. No, these guys from Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, they're from everywhere.
Yeah.
And these guys, they're all very nice, they're all very friendly, but it is very different. It's a very different atmosphere from what maybe I was used to in college or high school, because it's not everybody's on the same team and everybody's buddy and everybody's going to be, playing at some point this year. No, there are going to be guys that lose their jobs. There are going to be guys that get promoted. There are going to be guys that get hurt and never see the field again. And that's the reality, but it doesn't have to be that way, because a lot of guys are friendly. And for me, it was, I'm the friendly guy. I'm going to come in, I'm going to be a smile in the room and try to make everybody's day a little bit better.
Remember the Grain City last year during Pro Day? He was like, man, you're going to piss some people off.
Dude, yeah, Jameson, so he actually was a really great guy. I had to have in my corner, because I would text him a lot. I'd be like, hey, man, like, I'm here in spring training, or like, well, I got invited out to go to this dinner with guys. Like, what do I do? And Jameson was like, dude, don't worry about it. In the beginning, he was a little nervous, because he was like, dude, someone's going to steamroll you. They're going to run you over. They're going to take advantage of your niceness and your personality. And once kind of halfway through, he realized, like, dude, you're great. Like, no one's going to ever run you over because you're too nice.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a little bit of a downside too, though. You got to have that dog in you.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's that balance of off-field niceness and on-field dog mentality. That's always kind of a constant battle that I've figured out, like, is even more important in pro ball, and even more important as a pitcher, in my opinion, because as a hitter, you can take time in the dugout to relax and not have that dog in you. As a pitcher, you got to always be doing that. You got to always think like that. But for me, spring training and having those guys at Tread be there to have those friendly faces was very, very honestly welcoming, because it felt like I wasn't coming to a place that I had never been before, that I had never seen anybody. I was like, hey, Declan, like, hey, Lane, hey, my roommate Matt McGarry was a Tread guy. He threw in the pro day with me. And it was nice to have everybody around me that to support me, as well as even when camp broke, having some of the guys that were still Tread guys in me with extended. And that was definitely tough. People talk about, hey man, extended's hard, extended's hard. No, extended is 115-degree weather where you're throwing on a backfield where nobody even knows it's there. No one even knows it's there. That, first of all, Glendale, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, they come for spring training games, but after spring training and camp breaks, it's gone. Everybody's gone. It's just you in the backfield sweating bullets. But for me, that's where I honed my craft. That's where I went, dude, I don't want to be here anymore. This is awful. And I got out right before it got to the point where it was 120 every day. It was absurdly hot. But I got the call to go to Kannapolis midway through May. So I was in extended for about a month, almost a month and a half. And I went up to Kannapolis, and I was really nervous. I didn't really know anybody there that I had really through and through been Tread guys, like Matt and Jamil, some of the guys that I knew at spring training and extended. They were still in extended. Like, I left and went to Kannapolis, and I think there were 3 or 4 guys that I might have known and talked to a little bit that weren't Tread guys, but it was very different because I was in a world where I didn't really know anybody as much as I did in extended. You get there, we have a game in Fredericksburg. We're playing on the road, so I fly into DC and get an Uber from DC Dulles to Fredericksburg on like a Thursday. And I'm there that night, and everyone's like, oh, hey, I didn't even know we were getting you. And I was like, oh, hey, everybody. Hey, nice to see you, Bo. And so I don't know what to do. I don't know the protocol. I've never been in affiliate ball before. So I just put on my jacket, my little hoodie, some pants, and I kind of hang out in the dugout until the game's over. And I get the lowdown from the trainer. Oh, hey, here's where you go. Here's what you do. Here's what you're doing for the next couple of days. Pitching coach tells me, hey, you're probably not going to throw tomorrow or the next day. Your transaction hasn't really gone through yet, so you still got to wait for that, for rosters to be updated. And so I tell my folks, hey, like, don't come out yet. Like, I'm going to be pitching at some point, but not anytime soon. I end up getting told Saturday, hey, you're throwing tomorrow. I'm like, hey, you're going to pitch. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And I'm nervous as all get out. I text my parent, hey, like, I'm going to pitch tomorrow at some point. I don't know when. Fredericksburg's an hour and a half away. So it's from my house. So it's really very close, and I can have people come and watch. And everybody is coming. I asked for like 17 tickets for the debut that I had in Fredericksburg. Friends of the family, friends from high school, parents, my dentist, people like dude, people from everywhere. Like it's a big deal for me, at least. Like I never thought I'd be here. And so I go out there, I get called out of the bullpen. I'm still shaking, like everyone's screaming my name and stuff, and I can hear my family. And I go out there, and the board's hot. The board says everything's. I've been watching all game, all series. Like everything up there, I don't really believe as much. And so I'm 4 to 6, maybe I touch a 7 on the board, and I'm like, oh, like I'm feeling pretty good. I think I go like 3 up, 3 down in that first inning, or it was 2 outs. It was 1 out already, so I went 2 up, 2 down, and I went 3 up, 3 down the next inning, and I was 5-7 with my wipeout sinker. I had a great slider that day. I ended up punching out a guy from Auburn that I actually knew personally.
Really?
Yeah, it was one of the catcher from Auburn, Stephen Williams, and I actually bumped into him. We were at a local ballpark in Auburn in December, and he had just signed with the Nats, and so he's the Nats affiliates Fredericksburg, so he's there. And we're at this local ballpark. Hey, man, you on the club ball team? I'm like, yeah, I'm on the club ball team. And you can see my shirt and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, you're Stephen Williams. Like, I know who you are. Like, I've been watching you. I love Auburn baseball, big Auburn fan. Congratulations on the Nats and getting signed and whatnot. Maybe I'll join you. I got a pro day here with Tread in January. Right before the game, the guy, Steven and I, I'm like, hey, man, do you remember me? He was like, yeah, you're at Duck Sanford. You're at Duck Sanford Ballpark. And I was like, yeah, he ended up working out in the pro day. Yeah. I'll see you out there. And so I ended up, the last guy I faced in that outing was Stephen Williams. Yeah. And I was like 1-2 count. He just fouled off a changeup, pulled it. And I was like, I'm going to blow every bit of this 95, 96 by him. And it comes out and then the board says 99. I'm like, no freaking way, 99. TrackMan says 97.3. Yeah. We ended up debunking that and putting that out there. But that was the hardest I ever thrown in my life. Yeah. And John Eli and the coaching staff there goes, dude, what was that? If you do more of that, you will not be here longer than a week, 2 weeks. And I was like, guys, I don't think I've ever done that well before. Like, this is all new to me. Like I'm saying, like sinkers knew a month or two ago. Like I'm figuring this out. But for me to have that kind of moment, that kind of debut, that kind of experience, and I know we didn't really go into super long detail about the past, but we will. And you'll realize as we go through it, like how big of a deal it was for me in that moment. And some of the guys were like, dude, you did a whole curtain call and everything. And I went out there with my, hey, everybody. And some of my family's in the stands and they're sitting there. My mom's crying. My dad's screaming his head off. He's like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. And it just felt right. But they were like, dude, it's low A baseball. Like, why are you doing a curtain call? I'm like, because I don't belong here, to be honest with you. But I've gotten to the point now where I've been around the block a little bit and realizing that, hey, maybe a curtain call in your debut in low A isn't the best way to make a first impression. Yeah. But all the guys afterwards,
you only get a debut once. Like
exactly. You got to live it up, man. You got to have some fun with it. We're training here every day to have some fun. That's the whole point. But talk with all the guys afterwards, and they're like, dude, you deserve that. Like, they hear the story, you understand where I've been, where I've come from, what I've been through to get to this point, and they're like, dude, don't even worry about it. Like, that's great. Yeah. So. But to get into that a little bit, we'll start in high school. Right. I was told by my JV head coach that if everybody's arm was broken and that they were losing the game by more than 10 runs, that I still would not pitch. And I have that to this day in my mind of, all right, fair enough. But I was an outfielder. I caught a little bit, played some corner infield here and there. I have a little bit of size on me, but in high school, I wasn't anything special. I wasn't anything fantastic. I was every bit of 5'8", 5'9", $130, I think, as a freshman, $145 maybe. And I didn't make varsity. I was a freshman JV guy. Didn't make varsity my sophomore year, sophomore JV guy. Hit pretty well, had a good arm, always had a plus arm from the outfield, played center field. And my junior year, I was like, all right, now I'm on varsity. This is what we're doing it for. This is the whole point. I was actually lucky enough to have my JV head coach become the varsity head coach. Yeah. So it's like I had that guy for all 4 years. It was great. High school baseball player, Division III tennis player is my varsity head coach. English teacher, big Orioles fan. So it goes as far to say is that I didn't receive a ton of baseball education from him, but he did teach me work ethic. He did teach me accountability. Yeah. I was a very much relaxed, here to have fun kind of guy in the beginning of my career, and I was always running for those antics that I pulled and whatnot. But my junior year was really when I kind of made a decision to be serious with baseball. I had played other sports, was never allowed to play football. I always wanted to play football, but
because of mom.
So my dad. So my grandfather played for the Bills in the '70s and played at Auburn, and has 2 knee replacements and has trouble with just daily life from football. And they said from an early age, you will never see the football field. That is just something that your mom and I can't sit by and let that happen.
The bill, but you can't.
Right, exactly. So I never played football. Always wanted to, but I swam in high school. I was a swimmer. I did backstroke, which I credit to like some of my arm strength in training the posterior cuff with going through that medium of water. The lats, absolutely. But junior year, I said, hey, I really want to focus on baseball. This is what I love. I don't dread, baseball practice like I dread swim practice. Yeah. This is what I enjoy. So I told my parents, I said, I'm just going to do this. This is all I'm going to do. I'm going to see how this year goes. And junior year, I ended up having a pretty decent year. Honorable mention for Washington Post. I think it was All Metro. And I went, wow, that's really cool. Like, I didn't know that people were watching. Yeah. And I had made it a point in my mind, and I've learned that this is maybe not the right mentality to have when looking at colleges, but I went D1 or bust, man. I'm going to go play Division I baseball, or I'm not going to play baseball. And so I ended up going to my senior year going, this is it. Like, this is the time. This is when I get recruited. And I ended up having a really good year, like a really, really good year. Hit like over 500 for my varsity team that year.
Still playing outfield?
Still playing outfield, not pitching at all. So I think I had 3 innings my senior year, and it was in the state championship game. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I ended up hitting really well, played great outfield, made all conference, all state, all metro, like first team. Like I had a goal my junior year going into my senior year. I was like, oh, I was this little name on a newspaper article for honorable mention. I want the write-up. I want the picture. I want all the first team stuff. And in my senior year, I got that. And I was like, this is great. I get all these accolades. I don't really have any interest from colleges. And halfway through the season, it's like 560 or 570 batting average with like 3 or 4 jacks. And I'm in my coach's classroom, like bawling, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm legitimately doing everything that I think I have to do to get to the next level, and no one is taking an interest. The only people who are interested are JUCO guys, JUCO teams. And no offense to those guys, I think I'm more capable of playing at a higher level. And he goes, hey man, keep going, keep working hard. Like, someone will pay attention, someone will notice. I'm like, all right, like I'll keep working it. It wasn't until after I graduated high school that I ended up getting an invite to the MSABC, which is like Maryland State Association of Baseball Coaches, like all-star series or whatever for high school players. And I get an invite, and I go, and I end up having a decent game. I think I went 2 for 3 with a walk and like a double off of a draft pick guy, Tyler Blome from Archbishop Spalding for Baltimore. He was a 17th round guy for the Orioles, and Towson University was there at that game. And then the next game, I think I went 1 for 1 with 3 walks, and I always had a pretty decent eye in terms of being able to know what the strike zone looked like. So I guess that's what drew them, plus size, plus arm, plus power as well. They ended up coming to the last game of the series, which actually was at Camden Yards. So they have a Brooks Robinson tournament, basically, where you go through these series of games, and if you do well, they pare down the rosters. And that last game is like got the most scouts and the most people there. And they have a press conference for that game and everything. And I go to the press conference, and everybody around me is going, I'm going to BYU, I'm going to South Carolina. I'm like, I'm going to go to Auburn University and be a walk-on and try to do Naval ROTC, because that's my dream. And then I get a couple questions like, you didn't want to go anywhere else? Like after I was like, no, like my parents went to Auburn, my grandparents went to Auburn, like my brother and sister are going to probably go to Auburn, which they ended up going to Auburn like I did. And that's where I want to go. And so I ended up playing in that game at Camden Yards. I'll never forget it. I ended up getting the first hit of that game. Towson comes up after and goes, hey, we liked what we saw. We don't have any money, but would you be interested in a preferred walk-on spot as an outfielder? And I go, absolutely. This is my dream. So I ended up telling Auburn, I already applied to Auburn, hadn't even applied to Towson. I was like, hey, Auburn, I'm not coming. Got to tell my commanding officer for ROTC, hey, I'm not going to be in your unit, so I'm going to have to make arrangements to be somewhere else. And I get to Towson first day, and I go, wow, this is awesome. This is the most incredible thing ever. Like, they have machines, they have nets, you get 2 bats, you get a glove, you get cleats, you get shirts and shoes and everything. This is like, oh, this is awesome. And I ended up having a really good freshman year that year. I was a 2-way guy, so it ended up becoming where I was an outfielder. But in the fall, they said, hey, we had some injuries. Would you be interested in hopping on the mound? And I go, well, I don't know what I can do, and I don't know how valuable I'll be, but I have a little bit of pitching experience that I can touch on. And so my experience to that point in pitching was I pitched 1 game JV when everyone's arms were literally almost broken. I ended up pitching 1 outing against this school called Huntingtown, which basically couldn't hit velo. And that's when I realized I could throw hard. Like I was like 87 to 89, and I was like, dang, like I can kind of bring it up there. And then the state championship game my senior year, my coach had the genius idea of, oh, well, they've never seen you. Like, no one has any numbers on you. Like, we'll just throw you out there as an opener. You'll go 1 or 2 innings, and then our would-be starter would go after you. And I go, oh, fantastic. So I go out there for 3 innings, and I don't give up a run. I think I give up like 1 hit. I didn't walk anybody. I think I punched out like 3 or 4. And then we ended up losing that game in the bottom of the 10th on a walk-off. And it was really unfortunate, but we ended up losing that way. But at Towson, I was like, yeah, I have a little bit of experience. I'll get on the mound. I'll try it out. I'm 87 to 90, and they go, yeah, you're going to be a 2-way guy. So I go, well, hey, I don't know what that looks like in terms of my practices, in terms of how often I'm going to be throwing or bullpens, or what do I do? They go, lift like a pitcher, throw like a pitcher, act like a pitcher, but you'll take BP. And I go, okay, I'll take BP. Sounds good. In my mind, I go, there's no way I become a PO, right? Like, they still want me to hit. So I ended up hitting 300 that year, freshman year. I got like 40-something, 50-something ABs. And I'm getting like 16 to 17 innings on the mound, so not too bad. We end up getting a new coach. So the new coach comes in my sophomore year, and I didn't really have the best fall offensively. So I struggled a little bit with the bat. And it wasn't that I wasn't able to hit. It was that I wasn't able to hit for power anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like I basically couldn't hit a ball out. And I was like, what the heck's going on? And Matt Tyner goes, hey, you're like 90 to 91 as a sophomore who doesn't really know how to pitch. Like, you should try to see if you can figure that out. And I go, nah, man, like, I hit pretty well. Like, I'll continue to do what I'm doing. I just don't want to do that full time.
Yeah.
Like, as long as I can do half of both, I think I'll be in a good spot to enjoy it. The spring rolls around. He brings in some new guys. Those new guys take they take my spot, take some other guys' spots. He goes, hey, for you to stay on this team, you're basically going to pitch. Like, and that's all you're going to do. And I go, well, what about these guys who aren't really hitting as well and they're not POs? Like, well, why am I a PO? He goes, because you throw 90-91 and don't have any training. Like, you could be a third rounder if we figure you out.
Yeah.
And I go, all right. So he ends up texting me saying, hey, you're going to be a starter. You're going to start these 5 games. You're going to basically stop swinging altogether. Like, you're going to
spring before sophomore year?
This is middle of the spring, sophomore year.
Right.
And so I go, you could have told me in my face. Like, you couldn't have had a conversation at practice about this. And he goes, well, no, we need to have you start taking over that role so you have a bullpen today to get ready for the start next week.
Yeah.
And so I start against William & Mary. I start against the Citadel the next week. I start against George Washington the next week. And I didn't do bad. I think I had like a 6 or 7 ERA as a sophomore. I walked a lot of guys that sophomore year just because I didn't really feel confident in my pitching abilities, and I really didn't enjoy the game as much because everything I had known and loved as a hitter, as an outfielder, was just ripped away. It was just all of a sudden, you're going to play catch and do half your practice like you're used to. And I told my coach, I said, hey, like, I want to talk with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can go back to what we were doing?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed hitting. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. And he goes, no, like, you're doing great. Continue to do what you're doing. And I said, well, I don't know if I want to keep playing if this is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, you can either keep playing like this or you can find another school to play at. And
what was your, I guess, why were you hating on pitching at that point?
So it wasn't that I hated pitching. It was that I missed hitting.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I didn't want to be a pitcher. It was that I didn't want to not be a hitter.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed hitting. And for me, being able to slide, being able to make plays in the outfield, being able to wear the gear and be with my friends who are also hitters and were guys that I had known really well. When you're in high school, the pitchers and hitters don't really separate themselves as much because there are a lot of guys who do both.
Yeah.
And in college, that was the first look that I had of complete ostracization, I guess, of where guys are just, pitchers are over here and they never talk to the hitters, and the hitters are over here and they never talk to the pitchers. So for me to be completely removed from my, I guess, element or where I felt comfortable to more of a, hey, you're going to do what we tell you to do and you're going to like it.
Yeah.
That was really hard for me to kind of wrap my head around because I didn't really not have success as a hitter. It was that I had a lot of success as a pitcher. I was really young, really moldable, and then I had a better ceiling for that. And I understood that, but I didn't understand why I couldn't hit anymore. Because I was like, look, dude, I could still do both. Like, why not? They're guys that are doing it even
300 as a freshman.
Absolutely. And it wasn't that I was in a position to argue, though. Like, I couldn't say, hey, this season I've been tearing the cover off the ball.
Yeah.
It was because that season I hadn't really shown him that I could swing it. And that was his first year as a head coach. So you got to go off of what you know.
Yeah.
And so he ends up giving the ultimatum of, hey, you can either stay here and pitch or you can leave and find someone else to hit. And I say, well, hey, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to go try my hand at maybe finding another school. And I called my old head coach for my freshman year saying, hey, you believed in me enough to give me a chance. And, I'm thinking about leaving. Where do I go? He goes, well, I'll talk to some people. I'll help you out. And I think I get maybe one phone call from Division II Frostburg, which wasn't anything against them. It just wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I ended up calling up St. Mary's College of Maryland, Division III school back home, and saying, hey, I really want to come here because I really like your guys' bio program. I wanted to be a doctor at the time. I was studying to be an orthopedics surgeon for shoulder, elbow.
Yeah.
Like I said, I want to stay in the game as long as I can. If I could do it as a team doctor, then hey, by all means. But I really like St. Mary's bio program. So I called up their coach. I said, hey, I live 10, 15 minutes away. Yeah. Would there be any chance I'd come by while you guys are maybe playing some games or practicing or whatnot? Because this is the middle of my sophomore year.
Yeah.
Like, I end up leaving the middle of the season. Like, it's not, hey, season's over. It was, hey, you're pitching or you're not on the team anymore. Yeah. And I just said, hey, I'm done. Yeah. Like, I'm out of here. So I ended up going home and trying all these different schools, and I ended up finding that school at home. And I go, hey, I don't want to pitch. I only want to hit. That's all I want to do. And he goes, well, done. Sounds good. We'll make it happen. And so I ended up going to St. Mary's. I ended up catching. I ended up playing a little bit of outfield on the back end of the season. And I did have like 3 or 4 innings in there as a pitcher just because we almost had nobody. So it was like, hey, just go out there. And I was like, all right, sure. I ended up that junior year hitting like 430 with like 8 or 9 jacks. And I was like second team all conference. I got snubbed for all conference. There's a guy there who was like Division III player of the year. And I was like, yeah, dude, I have to hit like 580 to beat that guy. Yeah. But I ended up taking my information from that season and sending it to the coach at Towson and going, hey, like I had a pretty good year. Like I can still swing it. But it came to the point where it was like, okay, going into my senior year now, what do I do? Like, what's the next step? Like, how do I get to the next level? Yeah. And for me, it was, if I had any interest professionally, I would continue to play at St. Mary's, and I would go back for another year, and I would play, and I'd see if I could garner more interest to get maybe a draft opportunity or an invite. I think they had like a draft league that summer or whatever, to get a look. And I went and played in the Perfect Game League that summer after my junior year, got some interest as both a pitcher and a hitter. I think it was the Brewers and the Rockies where they had contacts that knew my coach, and my coach helped hook something up, and they ended up liking what they saw. But I ended up going to my senior year, and that year was COVID. Yeah. So that was the year where everything hit the fan, and I went, wow, like I thought I had a plan. I thought I knew what I was doing. But at this point now, it really is, what do I want to do? Is my career baseball, or is my career something else? Yeah. And it was a lot of soul searching to go, you know what, like I'm done. I'm going to walk away from this. I've put everything I can into this, and I've gotten a professional like interest, and I've had people tell me I could do it. But I don't know if I actually can do it, because I've seen what it looks like and what kind of effort it takes. And I genuinely don't know if I've put that effort forth, or if I've worked that hard, or if I've been in that environment where I can succeed and have those guys tell me I'm ready. So I'm going to hang them up. I'm going to go to Auburn, continue my degree towards biology. I actually pivoted to exercise science because I realized that if I was no longer going to be playing, I would really want to be involved as a coach. Yeah. And so I went to Auburn, continued my education there.
Did you think about playing at Auburn at all? Did it cross your mind?
That was a big conversation in my household for my parents. Were like, are you going to try out? Like, are you going to give it a shot? And I told him, I said, look, like if my goal down the road is eventually to maybe play professionally, and I want to see if I could do that, if I get told by these people here at Auburn that I can't even make this college program, I don't know if I would ever have the motivation or the drive after hearing that to continue to the next level, because I can't even get through the level that's in front of me. Yeah. And so I didn't try out. I didn't go to the Auburn baseball team and say, hey, I'm a walk-on, like what do you got for me? I did all the recruiting camps, I did all the showcases, and they had their kind of chance in high school, and they just weren't interested. And I honestly wasn't at that level. Like I just clearly wasn't. So I continued my studies at Auburn, and I joined the club team. And I said, hey guys, I saw you guys are a group on campus. Can I try out? What do I got to do? And I ended up trying out. Things go really well, and we kind of meet up at the back end of our story where we started of being club ball, tread, and here we are now with professional baseball.
So did you just, through Instagram, YouTube, like were you just watching Tread's videos? Like how did you even see it in the first place?
So when I switched over to exercise science, a lot of biology was genetics. You learn a lot about ecology. You learn a little bit about human anatomy. But exercise science is all human anatomy. Like, that's all it is. And it's all with respect to training and with respect to performance and with respect to being an athlete. So for me, whenever I kind of learned more about that, I went, well, who does that really well already that I could learn more from? Yeah. That's maybe I learned really well with baseball because I already have that background. Yeah. Who does that in the baseball world? And I found Driveline, I found Tread, I found Top Velocity. I found a bunch of other people that do that. But Tread, no one does it better than Tread. Like Tread does it the best. They did it in a way that I could understand, and they did it in a way that anybody out there who maybe doesn't have that baseball experience or maybe doesn't have that athletic background, you could break it down and explain it to them. And I realized that if you guys could do that really well, you guys could make almost anybody professional. Like that's kind of my argument of like, well, dude, I'm a club ball guy who's now a pro. Like if I can do it, like anybody can do it.
For you this season, like one thing that you, like the highlight of your year, I think you're on Sportscenter too.
Yeah. So I wasn't the fastest guy out there growing up in college, and I was plus bat, plus arm, but I made it a point on the back end of my years in college to make myself faster for the scouts, for pros, for pro looks. This season, I actually got a chance to put that on the showcase and put that on the big stage. I was playing in a game for Kannapolis we were in the Carolina Stadium, Carolina Mudcats, the Brewers affiliate. There was a play, it was like the 8th inning, it was the back end of a game. It was like the back end of a series, honestly, too, on a Sunday. And I just let up a triple off the wall, left center, and there's one out. And I go, well, I got to come back with a good pitch, get in the zone, like maybe something that doesn't get hammered. So I throw a sinker inside to a righty. It jams him. It gets up on him a little quick, and he ends up hitting kind of a off the handle cue shot almost to second base. And the guy ends up on third base after the triple that just happened. He gets it caught in the rundown. Yeah. And I ended up getting into the rundown because obviously when it goes so many throws, the pitcher gets involved, especially if it's at home plate, and I get the ball. And the guy's still doing his little dancey dance where he's kind of between the bases. And I'm like, dude, I'm just going to MLB to show it. I'm just going to run right at you. And if you got to make a decision. You're either going back to the bag and I get back on the mound and continue pitching, or you're out. And that's, that's one of the outs that I got to get. So I end up tagging him as he goes back to third. And the guy that hit the ball is still running the bases. He's between second and third, and I look up after tagging the guy at third base, and I go, the guy's right here. Like, I got to make an effort to go get him. So I go to chase him, and he realizes, obviously, I have the ball, and he's like going back to second base, and I get into a little foot race with him, and I end up laying out back towards second base to tag him. And I hear the umpire, oh, he's out. And I'm like, dude, I just got to double play. Like, I don't have to go back on the mound anymore. Like, in my mind, I was like, let's just run him back to the bag. Let me get back on the mound. Let me continue the inning. No, it was the inning's over. You just made a play that would, my coach comes out. Eli goes, you need to save that video. That's going to be everywhere, man. And he sends that to me that night. And 2 days later, or a day later even, it's on ESPN. It's on MLB Network. It's on John Boy Media. Like, they put it out there. And all my friends and my family are going, this is you, like, this is your video. The announcer said your name, like, your name's on the screen. I'm like, yeah, I got to play it cool. Like, yeah, I've been there, I've done that. No, it was the coolest thing on planet Earth. For me, I'm on cloud nine, and I couldn't get enough of it. But I'll tell you, it kind of got old, though, in a couple weeks as the guys on the team and the coaching staff, and I drop a ball playing catch on the right field line before a game. That's not very Sportscenter of you, like, come on, man. It's like, I'm just trying to play catch. But it was one of the coolest things. Like, I to this day, I think that I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
So in the last year, you have a video, 10 million views. Mm-hmm. My Instagram, you got curtain call, your debut up tonight, 7-5, run back, made a play on Sportscenter. Was there anything in the last year that you'd say was like a low light for you? Like anything that you were just like going through pro ball first year, anything struggle wise where you're like, okay,
I wouldn't say that anything like outside of baseball maybe was a struggle for me. I definitely struggled with my command this year. Yeah. That was kind of my biggest thing that I felt that could be improved going into next year. The velo was fine. The stuff, everything was dancing. There were definitely outings, though, especially in the back half of the season, where people tell you, hey, man, the season's long. It's going to get tiring. You don't really know how long a professional baseball season really is until you live it and you go through and experience it. In August, I had more walks than at any point in the season. I think I had months where I'd go 2 or 3 walks, 4 walks at the most. But in August, I walked 16, and that was the most I had walked at any point in my career. Yeah. And I went, dude, I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. And my arm was tired. I was averaging like 91, 92 out the pen. My legs were tired. Everything was just sore. And there would be outings where I'd come back, and John Eli, my pitching coach, he and I would talk about it. He goes, dude, I don't really have anything to say. Like, you know what's up. I know what's up. Like, I don't need to keep saying that you need to throw more strikes, but that's what's up. And it would be just you feel really alone. You'd feel really, obviously people talk about the mound being the loneliest spot on the field, being an island. Going through baseball as a position player and making that change to being a pitcher, nothing really prepares you for that, for the feelings of, obviously the highs like we talked about are there, and there are really good days like that, but there are also really low days where nothing goes right. You're doing everything you can to be in the zone. You're trying everything you can to get a swing. Like, if you're not in the zone, you're like, dude, I'm just trying to get you to swing at the ball. Yeah. And there are days where you come out, you just walk the bases loaded on 12 pitches, and you're like, well, what the hell? Yeah. And it's the clubhouse afterwards, the next couple of days afterwards, especially being a reliever. You don't pitch all the time. You don't have a guaranteed day as a start. Like, this is my day to pitch. Like, you may not pitch for another week or so, depending on if the coaching staff has that confidence in you. Mm-hmm. And to be the guy that they go to time in and time out to get guys out of jams and be the kind of the savior, and then to be on the other end of that and be the guy that's like, well, you're kind of the reason we're in this spot. that's the worst. It's the worst feeling. And I've had to really cope with that as not just a baseball player, but as a person, and understand that it's not about who I am, and it's not my identity. It's about the performance, and everything about the performance can be changed.
Yeah.
Me as a person, I'm not the reason why we're in the spot. Plagge, you know, he's an awful human being. No. He walked some guys. He didn't throw up the ball of the plate.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. How do we do that better?
Yeah.
And that's what we're here this offseason focusing on, so that way those lows don't happen all the time.
Yeah, big year of growth for you. And we talked about too, like swing decisions and just like giving the hitter an opportunity to make a choice to swing. Like we want to make him swing. And so this offseason, we talked about adding the cutter a little bit and kind of dialing in like the breaking ball and kind of giving you two distinct profiles and maybe a third pitch. So, you know, talk a little bit about like the cutter we kind of talked about last week, how that's kind of grown for you and like what we're trying to do to like get you ready for the season.
Yeah, so the cutter we kind of experimented with a little bit to be a pitch that I could get in the zone pretty frequently. It also is the opposite kind of look of my sinker, where it almost has the opposite pattern of movement. So it allows for me to pitch to guys that maybe last year I couldn't pitch to them that way, like especially lefties, like backdooring a lefty, throwing a pitch that if I were to throw an inside cutter to a lefty, he couldn't just lean out over the plate and expect that sinker. The slider has been a work in progress last year, being a brand new pitch, sinker, the same boat, but I have a lot more confidence in those pitches and knowing where they're going to go, because after 40, 50 innings in a season, you're going to figure out how your pitches move and how they're going to affect the hitter. And for me, the biggest thing this offseason is creating those repeatable command, and repeatable command comes with those mechanics. So repeatable command, and for me at least, being in the zone consistently, I have to be able to control my body. So the cutter is going to be a pitch that I can do in early counts to kind of be that control aspect, where that stuff can then play off of that command that we've established. So for me last year, the command wasn't there, and I would basically be throwing the nastiest stuff I could throw, and guys would not swing the bat, because like we talked about, if you have plus stuff, plus velocity, guys are going to sit back and let you make your own mistakes. And that's how I've been seeing it. So for me this year, changing that mentality and changing that approach of, hey, I'm going to get in the zone early, I'm going to force them to make a decision after they've seen that I can command it, and then the nasty stuff comes out 1-2, 0-2, and that's the put away stuff. And for me, having that mentality of, hey, I'm lights out, you can't strike a guy out in the first pitch. Like that's just the reality of it. And for me last year, I feel like that's almost what I was trying to do. I was trying to strike everybody out on the first pitch I threw, and the velo was great. It was nasty. But then you walk the house, and then the home runs become 2-3 run homers instead of solo shots. And that's how that kind of snowballs into that. So for me this year, creating repeatable command, mechanics that feed into that, and getting in the zone early. Those are kind of my big three that I'm going to focus on.
Other than that, goals for you, or your 2023 goals? You write them down anywhere?
So I haven't written them down yet. So for me, I usually try to do those during spring training, because I try to see like what the organization was looking for, what my pitching coach last year maybe is thinking, what you're obviously thinking as well, and taking everyone's opinion and then creating a singular idea of a goal. But for me, I would like to reduce my walks. I'd like to get in the zone more often early. Not so much that I want to be in the zone 3-0. Now we're in the zone. It's, hey, I want to be in the zone 0-0, 0-1, 1-0, either of those counts. I want to be able to have that kind of longevity, like we were talking about, being that low point in the season last year, have that longevity to power through that low point, be able to feel my legs underneath me in August. And honestly, everyone's going to talk about how the back end of a season is arguably the most important part of the season. Like I want to be able to prove that to any organization out there that I can pitch in the back end of the season, and I can pitch when the pressure's on the line. And for me, improving that this offseason right now is going to be like a big part of achieving that goal in the season. It's like preparing the right way, conditioning the right way, lifting the right way. Those things are going to help me be better for the goal next year. So being in the zone more, to not walk as many guys, building up myself this offseason to make sure that I can last the whole season and not break down at the end. And honestly, this year I want to have more fun. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I was very nervous last year. I'm very nervous right now. I like to kind of live on the edge a little bit, but that can kind of be maybe something to my detriment almost, that I get so amped up, I get so nervous, I'm so much all at once. But it's like, hey man, if I can just relax, have fun, play the game it's meant to be played, not feel the same pressures as last year. You go to spring training, dude, last year I'm literally on the mound, and I don't know if anyone else can see it, but like I'm shaking, like I don't want to mess up, like all I want to do is just be here and play and be a part of this. And now that I've had that first year, this is where the playing, this is where the looseness, this is where the relaxation and the fun comes in, that allows me to pitch and play at the highest level that I can. And that's what I'm hoping this season will be for me.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And hey, Tread Athletics is the way to go. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys. So that's what I got to say it.
Oh yeah.
You guys, anything else? We good?
Great.
I talk too much. I talk too much.
No, because it's funny because you say that, but you're the shortest. It's true. This is the shortest conversation. Everyone's been an hour. This has been 40.
Cool.
I liked when you said we'll get into it more as we go along. Like you're interviewing me about your self story.
Well, I know for a fact that I've had people ask, especially in season 2 and like minor league, all the guys are like, oh, like how'd you get to this point? And you get to a point where you have it on download where you know
your story.
Yeah. Cool.